Hi, I'm Jeff Chamberlain. I'm the director for the cinematic for Wrath of the Lich King. For Wrath of the Lich King, we decided to go along with a more story-driven cinematic. The reasons for that were actually a few different reasons. One is production costs. It actually costs a lot more to do a montage because there are multiple characters, multiple scenes, multiple lighting scenarios. More of a driving factor was the fact that we wanted to really tell this story with this character. Arthas is an old character from Warcraft 3, for those that are familiar with that, and we just really wanted to tell a little bit more of his story. For the Wrath of the Lich King, we decided to use Arthas' father, Taranis, as the voiceover. The reason for that is there's some old drama between the two of them. Taranis was Arthas' father, obviously, but he sent him out to do a few tasks. Arthas got corrupted in the process, came back, killed him, took over the kingdom. Using Taranis' voice was actually the idea of one of our editors here. We thought that it was a great idea because it really played off the relationship between father and son and how the son became exactly opposite what the father intended for him to. The Arthas model from Warcraft 3 was very basic. I think that was about 5 years ago. So we opened it up and took a look at it and realized that technology's improved quite a bit over time. To visualize what the new Arthas would look like, we went through a concepting phase. We would draw on top of the old version, bringing out more detail in areas that needed it. For instance, the skulls on his armor, we added a ton of new detail to it. And we added layers to his armor, layers of leather and different layers of plate that weren't there previously, all the while trying to maintain that general Arthas vibe that's always been there. One of the more difficult things to do in CG is to create realistic-looking hair that moves realistically and renders realistically. We have a department specifically made for simulating hair and cloth. Generally what they'll do is they'll make a small patch of hair that represents what we're aiming for and make that work properly. And then they'll apply that to the larger model and make sure that it flows in the wind properly, renders properly. Eventually they'll put that hair into the shot and simulate it using computer calculations rather than hand animation to make it flow through the wind properly. Not only does our modeling department handle all the models, they also handle all the surfacing that occurs on the model, how light interacts with the surface, whether it's reflective, whether it's matte, whether it has a speck hit on it, or various parameters that make the character look as it does. For instance, on skin, there's a parameter called subsurface, which is basically the calculation of light bouncing through the surface rather than bouncing off of it. Another challenge with Arthas and his sword Frostmourne is the metallic nature of it. It's always a fine balance there to get it reflective enough, but not overly reflective. If it's overly reflective, it will seem too CG, and if it's not reflective enough, then it ends up looking dull and stone-like. Seeing as how we're in Southern California, we don't have a lot of snow reference. As a result, we purchased 8 gallons of fake snow and pushed it around and took photos of it and filmed it just to get ideas on how it would react with the light. It wasn't exactly perfect since it's not real snow. We went to places like Mammoth or Alaska and took photos and filmed reference. We then used that as a basis to create movement of snow falling from the sky, for instance, or being blown in the wind, or how it diffuses light as light passes through it. There's really no better reference than real life. We spent a lot of time on how wind affected it and how it fell, and it really changes per shot based on the mood of the shot. In the early part of the show, it's a lot calmer, and toward the end when things really pick up, we get it a lot stormier. When we started this process, we were trying to follow the format from the previous cinematics where it would show a montage. And one of those ideas that we had was to have Arthas raising this hugely epic Frostworm. that really stuck with us. So we kept going back to that idea and adding to it and adding to it. And eventually we realized that that one overshadowed all the other ideas we had. So we went along that path and created a singular storyline based around this awesome dragon.
My name is Aaron Chan, and I'm the lead animator for World of Warcraft: Wrath of the Lich King. On this project, we had 2 animators full-time. It allowed each animator to stay consistent with the character and really explore what each character is thinking. We didn't use any motion capture for the characters in this project. Everything was hand animated. As for animating Arthas, we just found as we went along and explored different ideas with him, it was best if we kept his movements very, very simple and subtle and deliberate. It really helped sell that he was a character with a lot of intent and focus. To sell the Frostworm's scale and size in the cinematic, we really tried to slow her movements down a lot and keep them linear. We don't really have anything to reference from in the real world, so we looked at a lot of birds and dinosaur movies and things from real life like Komodo dragons and studied the way they walk. We knew that animating a whole undead army would be quite challenging. How we decided to tackle this problem was we started off by animating about a dozen different animations. We then duplicated these animations across a large number of undead soldiers, and we offset their animations and scaled a few keys, made some things different so that each undead character would have a little bit of their own unique personality. We brought in professional actors, and we had other animators and people in the department act out undeads cheering and turning. Ultimately, it was best if we just kept things subtle so they could read on the screen.
My name is Xin Shan. I'm the lead finisher for the World of Warcraft, the Wrath of Lich King. So I'm going to briefly talk about the finishing team, that what we do at Blizzard Cinematic Department. So in short, we're directly responsible for assemble all the assets from all different departments. For example, animations, models, effects. Our responsibility is to put all these things together, do what it takes to balance it, to make it artistically very intriguing to watch. Through lighting, through compositing, through all different techniques, and eventually becomes the final frames that we delivered to the audience. So in terms of the effects for the dragon, we know from the beginning the effects for the dragon will be probably one of the most daunting and exciting effects that we'll ever created for the whole piece. The director and the 2D concept artist first sit down and do a lot of 2D concept work, try to mock up the look of the effects and the dragon. Then, once that's done and approved, we give that concept to the effects team, and they will basically try to reproduce that look in the 3D world, but in motion. And the effects team did all sorts of tests working with millions of particles to try to make the dragon effects looks as exciting as possible. For this cinematic, we do use a lot of matte paintings, but background stuff. The reason for that is basically due to the limited time and human resource we have, and the skill and the complexity of the whole 3D set. Practically, it's almost impossible to really build the whole set to the level of details we require here. Instead, what we do is we build a rough 3D set. We call it proxy environment models. And then we do 3D projections. It's based on the force perspective, optical illusion that human eyes have. The limitation for that is it only works from a specific camera angle. The way we are doing things here in terms of putting a shot together could be roughly break down to 3 big groups. One is the character, all the layers related with the character. That's one group. And then there will be environment, any matte paintings or 3D set pieces, and also the effects group, which include anything effects related, obviously, hairs, furs, breath, smokes, anything you can think of, particle effects, snows. Well, each of those groups usually contains many different layers. For example, the character group includes the different layers to allow us to have total control over the look of the character.
So hopefully that gives you some insight on how we do things here at Blizzard Cinematics. It's a great deal of fun and hard work to get this on the screen. We all enjoy it very much and hope that everyone enjoys watching it as well.